my right, it's 25 to life. There was so much I got to trust, safeguard in my life. Ain't no time for.
I just knew Prodigy had some unfinished business, you know what I mean? And I wanted to. He came in, and I remember how I went to WBLS.
One of the greatest musical minds America has ever had. The creator behind more than 3.1 million albums sold worldwide. A true hip-hop icon of the 90s, Havoc. But behind those immortal beats was a string of nightmares powerful enough to wipe out an entire legendary career. A fiery beef with Jay-Z spread across the globe, nearly ending his career. A close friend betrayed him and plotted to destroy him. A severe alcohol addiction cost him a contract worth millions of dollars. Havoc once had everything. And then, each piece slipped out of his hands. Hollywood once chanted his name like a legend, but it was also ready to erase him in a single night. What really happened? Who dragged Havoc into hell? Do not take your eyes off the screen, because Havoc's story is only beginning. And what comes next will shock you. A childhood raised in violence and tears. Havoc's real name is Kajuan Waliek Muchita, born on May 21, 1974. Unlike names who grew up in the same era, like Nas or Jay-Z, men who had to fight to find their path into music, Havoc carried something every artist would kill for a real musical bloodline. His grandfather, Bill Dixon, was a legend of avant-garde jazz, a major educator, and a man who broke every sound rule ever written. The Matthews Caldwell Adams lineage, rooted in St. Kitts in North Carolina, blended Caribbean gospel and soul into a deeply musical culture. And on top of that, Havoc is a distant relative of Eric Sermon from EPMD, a man who helped build the foundation of modern hip-hop. A spiritual support system few rappers could ever dream of. With a background like that, you might think Havoc would have a peaceful life and a wide-open musical path, right? But the truth flipped 180 degrees and dragged him from artistic heritage straight into the pit of violence. Few people know that all those relatives, all those legendary names, did nothing to improve the reality of Havoc's small family. No fame ever trickled down into Queensbridge, where he lived. It was not a place for children to dream. It was the territory of gangs, drugs, and violence. There was no money, no privilege, no open doors. Just because he carried a great last name. Havoc's family was as poor as any other black family in the old New York housing projects. In that harsh reality, Havoc faced another painful void: the absence of his father. His father was almost never present during his upbringing, leaving behind an emptiness that made young Kajuan withdraw from other kids and live in a constant defensive state, as if the world was always trying to hurt him. His mother had to carry both roles. She was strict protective, limiting his exposure to bad influences in the projects. But most importantly, she was the only one who never crushed his musical dream. Even without money, without resources, she pushed him to cling to music like a lifeline. But a mother's love was not enough to make Havoc a confident child. He fell into depression, spoke very little, and wanted nothing more than to lock himself in his room with music. But do not mistake that for weakness. The strength of a child living with depression is never on the losing side. Despite being quiet, Havoc was not soft. Street life hardened him, turning him into a kid ready to fight back against anyone who tried to bully him. Everything changed when Havoc attended the High School of Art and Design. There he met Albert Johnson, later known as Prodigy. Prodigy taught him his first beats, opening the door the silent boy had always searched for. From two contradictory life paths, Havoc and Prodigy formed the duo Poetical Prophets, laying the first brick for a journey that would change hip-hop forever. But more accurately, it was the journey that left Havoc with a regret that followed him for years to come. Talent blooming, or Hollywood's golden trap. They formed Poetical Prophets, recorded rough demos, and personally knocked on doors of DJs and producers across the city. One of those songs unexpectedly appeared in the Source magazine, bringing them a little attention. Then they changed their name to Mobb Deep, a name soaked in survival, street life, and darkness. But their first two albums failed almost completely. Sales were so bad the label dropped them without giving them another chance. No warning, no see you later. Just a door slammed right in their faces. Then the unthinkable happened, the infamous. An album that not only saved their career, but redefined New York hip-hop. Nas appeared. Raekwon and Ghostface came in. Behind those steel-cold beats were Havoc's sweat fears and scarred childhood. And that explosion set off a domino effect for their entire future million-dollar deals. Big stages collaborations they never dared to dream of. And during those years, Havoc's mother always whispered one sentence: "You need to be careful with your partner." Havoc laughed. He thought she was overthinking like adults often do. He believed in brotherhood, believed in music, believed in Mobb Deep. But you know it well. The intuition of someone who has lived half a lifetime longer than us is never just emotion. But when the duo became successful, fame was a cruel light that shined in only one direction. The world rushed toward Prodigy, worshiping him as the soul of the group. Every poster, every article, every interview, everything revolved around one name. To the audience, Mobb Deep almost meant Prodigy. And Havoc, the guy behind the mixer. Period. And of course, that lopsided fame and distorted perception of talent drove Havoc into decisions, reactions, and turning points he never saw coming. The biggest scandal of his career and a desperate defense. The internet always knows how to kill its own users. And a Hollywood artist like Havoc was no exception. In just one night, shocking information spread like wildfire across America. Havoc went on Twitter to insult Prodigy using harsh words like gay, fake, dishonest. A blast right at the heart of the hip-hop community. When confronted, he claimed he was hacked. But that excuse was too familiar, too predictable. And because of that, no one believed him. The internet tore the story apart instantly. They said he staged a cheap drama. They said he was avoiding responsibility. They mocked him, calling it the worst lie in Mobb Deep history. In a few hours, Havoc's image as the quiet man behind the lights was replaced with one of an impulsive, childish, weak artist crumbling under pressure. And social media, as always, did not know when to stop. It threw him into a public furnace where every word was treated like evidence in a crime. Then Sway Calloway from MTV called Havoc directly. One question: were those tweets real? And Havoc answered, very real. That moment was a knife slicing through all his previous excuses. It destroyed the hacking story instantly. The hip-hop community froze. What on earth was happening? Was Havoc playing with the audience? But he still did not stop. When the lie collapsed, he switched to another explanation. He left his phone at a gas station. But the internet checked all tweets came from a web browser, not a phone. The excuse fell apart immediately. Then he said he used a password-saving app, making the crowd laugh at how ridiculous it sounded. Every defense he made only made the scandal darker and more painful. And of course, Prodigy was not going to stay quiet after being attacked publicly by his own partner. That unexpected blow pushed Mobb Deep into an indefinite misunderstanding. And you know it. Havoc's career survived because of Mobb Deep, because Prodigy was on the front line. If the group froze, performance fees, shows, royalties would all drop sharply. The scandal did not just fracture a 20-year friendship. It dragged Havoc into a real financial crisis. But the reason behind Havoc's explosive anger lay deeper. A close source revealed that Prodigy was building private connections, working with others behind Havoc's back, and even preparing a new track without telling him. For an artist whose survival depended on a two-piece model being shut out, was like a silent stab. The feeling of abandonment, betrayal, of losing his rightful position built up inside Havoc for years, and it erupted directly on Twitter. But the internet delivered its final judgment. Havoc lied from start to finish. Once the crowd decides what is true, there is no escape. No one listened to him, and that event pushed him into a wild addiction he never truly escaped from. Havoc, the 5-year chase, and the confession. I was really drunk. Havoc once said that alcohol was the silent enemy that had followed him since the late 90s, but no one believed him. In the eyes of the public, Havoc was always the cold, calm man, the steady half of Mobb Deep, who never let emotions slip out of control. But the truth was never that simple. Behind the studio door, behind the show nights, and the indifferent interviews, Havoc was living a private war that no one but him could see. Alcohol was not just a habit during exhaustion. It was an escape, a mask, a swamp disguised under the stage lights. And many years later, when the stories he once told were revisited, people finally realized that Havoc had not exaggerated. He was describing exactly what had silently destroyed his life. Havoc began drinking more heavily as pressure built around Mobb Deep. Prodigy was constantly fighting illness. The touring schedule was relentless. Rumors of the duo breaking up were swirling, and the unnamed tensions that anyone in street music knows too well. Alcohol became Havoc's way of shutting the world off. But the more he drank, the blurrier the line became between real emotions and distorted visions. That was when gambling appeared like a new adrenaline, stronger, more dangerous, and easily convincing him that he was in control. The truth was the complete opposite. XXL magazine once reported that Havoc burned $20,000 in a casino in just a few hours. The next morning when he woke up, he could not remember what happened. He did not remember which game he played. He did not remember who he went with. He did not remember why he threw himself into bets like a deranged man. Everything was just a black, damp, freezing void. Some close sources said this was not an isolated event. Havoc had many similar nights drinking until he blacked out, gambling until he no longer knew limits, and waking up with the terrifying question, "What did I do?" But in public, he still appeared composed. He still stepped onto the stage as if nothing had happened. He still posted photos like a peaceful man. That mask was so perfect that fans never believed he had a real problem. And then one night, the combination of alcohol-heavy losses and paranoia opened the door to the biggest tragedy of Havoc's life. After losing badly at a casino, his mind spiraled into a distorted state where everything became a conspiracy. He believed the missing money was not from gambling or drinking, but stolen by Prodigy's manager. In exhaustion, agitation, and anger, Havoc believed he was being betrayed. He believed the duo was being exploited. And he believed Prodigy knew, but said nothing. When Prodigy walked into the dressing room, Havoc exploded. No explanation. No pause for thought. He attacked the man who had been his brother for more than 2 decades. Prodigy barely understood what was happening. It was not the punch of someone angry about work. It was the punch of someone who had let darkness run his life for far too long. Someone completely out of control. Someone who no longer distinguished real from imagined, trust from suspicion, brother from enemy. That incident, according to close sources from that period, was the original fracture beneath the entire breakdown that preceded the Twitter scandal of 2012. After the punch, Prodigy said nothing. Havoc explained nothing. But the atmosphere around Mobb Deep changed forever. The trust that once held them together began to crumble. Fans did not know. Media did not know. But the inside circle knew they had crossed a dangerous line, one where any crack could become a canyon. When the Twitter scandal happened months later, many thought Havoc was just angry or performing. But the truth, as he later admitted, was that he had been drowning in alcohol for a long time. His mind was unstable, his emotions fragile. When he said, "I have a problem with alcohol," fans did not believe him. When he said, "I was not fully conscious at the time," fans thought he was making excuses. But when backstage stories, the casino, the blackout, the punch, were resurfaced through XXL Mag and eyewitnesses, who had been there since the beginning, the entire hip-hop community finally saw that Havoc had been living in a darkness deeper than anyone imagined. This is the most painful paradox. The story people doubted the most. Was the story most true? And only when every piece was revealed did people understand why he called alcohol the demon, and why Mobb Deep had already fractured in silence long before the internet noticed the first signs. Havoc did not blame anyone. He simply told the truth. But like everything in his life, that truth cost him blood, brotherhood, and years of fighting a war no one knew he was battling. The rumors that distorted Havoc's image. For 20 years. For more than 2 decades, Havoc repeatedly said one sentence that sounded defensive, almost helpless. "The internet does not know me." A sentence that seemed harmless, but beneath it lay layers of misunderstanding, distortion, and silence so prolonged that even he no longer wanted to correct anything. The irony is, the more silent he was, the more the internet built a version of Havoc that did not exist. A digital mannequin molded from a few moments of lost control, a few scattered rumors, and one scandal repeated endlessly for 10 years. People called him rude, hot-tempered, unapproachable, controlling, a gruff rapper always ready for trouble. And over time, those adjectives stuck to his name as if they were his true identity. The first distortion came from Havoc's prolonged silence. He was not the type to live stream, not the type to post personal life updates, not the type to join online drama to take back the narrative. Essentially, he let the internet tell the story for him. And the internet is never kind to the quiet. One person claimed they met Havoc backstage, and he seemed irritated. Immediately, that story became his true personality. Another person said he was not friendly. And soon that turned into Havoc is extremely hard to approach. The internet only needs a crumb, and it will build an entire wall. Then came the deeper rumors stories people attached to him, not because they were true, but because they matched the image they invented. Rumors that Havoc ghost wrote for Prodigy, or Prodigy ghost wrote for Havoc. Rumors that the two only pretended to reconcile before Prodigy passed away. Rumors that Havoc was jealous of Prodigy's talent and constantly trying to prove himself. Rumors that he was never sincere, only bitter, carrying quiet resentment. The strange part is that most of these rumors were based on silence. No one involved said anything, so the internet assigned roles one blazing genius Prodigy and one jealous shadow sitting in the dark Havoc, a story too easy to believe. But the truth went in the opposite direction. People who worked with Havoc, from Nas Raekwon Big Noyd to younger producers, described him with words the internet never imagined: kind, calm, soft-spoken, intensely introspective, to the point where many mistook him for being cold. Havoc did not like noise, did not like arguments, did not like explanations. He put all his energy into the studio. For those who understood him, that silence was not an attitude, but a personality. Not distance, but focus. Not unfriendliness, but loyalty to the music more than the spotlight. And when Havoc sat on Drink Champs and said he struggled with alcohol, feared himself carried emotional wounds, he never expressed the public saw a different Havoc for the first time. A man who did not need to shout or explain, just calmly admitted, "The internet does not know me." And this time, people began to believe him. Because behind the convincing rumors was simply a void he never wanted to fill. And behind the truth, full of pain, effort, and restraint, was the real man no one had ever seen. There are artists who are distorted by the media, but for Havoc, it was his silence that allowed people to create the most distorted version of him. A version believed for 20 years. Only when people who stood beside him stepped forward and spoke the truth did the public realize truth and rumor are worlds apart. And between those two worlds, Havoc chose to stand still, letting the music speak for him. The great loss of Mobb Deep. There are moments that need no explanation, no press release, no MC or blogger to verify anything. Just one human reaction at the deepest, rawest second, a second too real for performance, too sudden for any mask. And for Havoc, that moment happened on the morning he received the call that Prodigy had passed away. In that 1 second, every doubt, every rumor, every debate of many years fell silent. The music world, which had grown used to seeing Havoc as a cold, quiet, unshakable figure, had to stop. Because in that second, Havoc was no longer a rapper, no longer a producer, no longer half of Mobb Deep. He was simply a man who had lost a part of himself. For many years, fans believed that the Twitter scandal of 2012 left a fracture that could never be repaired. People thought the two only made peace publicly to preserve the Mobb Deep legacy, that they appeared together more for contracts than for brotherhood. Some even believed Havoc never truly forgave or truly felt remorse. The debates lasted a decade, from underground forums to Reddit, from YouTube comments to hip-hop podcasts. And Havoc, who was always quiet and disliked explaining things, let people believe whatever they wanted. But only when Prodigy's death occurred did the truth rise like a piece of metal pulled by a magnet from the deepest soil. When the call came, Havoc was in the studio, a space he and Prodigy had spent half their lives turning into a bunker, a temple, a place where pain was distilled into sound. The friend on the phone told him one simple sentence: Prodigy gone. Just 2 words gone, and 25 years of shared history collapsed like a building losing its foundation. Havoc later said he fell straight to the floor, his mind shaking like he had just heard a gunshot echoing through a Queensbridge corner of the past. He did not ask anything. He did not react. He simply put his hands on the ground trying to breathe, but the air in the room felt like it had vanished. It was an image no one in hip-hop had ever pictured. A man often viewed as a machine without emotion, a figure in the shadows, someone who rarely revealed his inner world. But in that second, Havoc hid nothing. Everything lay bare. And it made fans fall silent in a way rarely seen in hip-hop, a silence heavy, uncomfortable, but real. Because everyone knew if this reaction was acting, then it was the greatest performance in history. Immediately, the entire relationship between Havoc and Prodigy was re-examined. Every line Prodigy wrote in his memoir, every interview Havoc ever gave, every moment on stage when they looked at each other like two warriors speaking without words, every lyric they traded like coded messages in the dark. People began to realize that their brotherhood had never truly been destroyed by the Twitter scandal. There was anger. There was misunderstanding. There was hurt. There were years of silence. But there was no hatred, no abandonment, no real fracture. The bond between them was not a rope that snapped easily. It was a chain rusted and bent, but still locked together. And Havoc himself finally explained this after many silent years. He said that before Prodigy passed away, they truly reconciled, not the kind of reconciliation staged for the media. They talked about their wild youth, the unnecessary beefs, the mistakes they both made, and the losses only they understood. Especially the shadow of Queensbridge, a place that created them, but also nearly destroyed them. They both understood they were not just musical partners. They were survivors of a world most of their friends never escaped. And because of that, their brotherhood could not be erased by a few tweets or arguments. But Prodigy's death did more than break Havoc. It forced him to face a question no one wants to ask. What is Mobb Deep when only half remains? He once said bluntly, "I could not listen to my own music for months. I could not touch any track we ever made." A man who turned hip-hop into a living language. A producer who could spend hours adjusting a single snare suddenly could not bear the sound of his own work. That alone showed how deeply Prodigy was part of Havoc's life. And it made fans understand that Havoc's stories about their bond were never empty words to promote albums or please the press. They were true. At this point, the entire hip-hop world shifted in attitude. Those who once questioned Havoc began to respect him differently. Those who once said Havoc was cold, emotionless, the one who ruined the group had to reconsider. Because the moment he collapsed on the floor, the moment he shed his rapper persona, was the clearest answer to every question. You do not collapse like that for a coworker. You do not cry like that for a business partner. You collapse like that only when you lose a part of yourself. And for the first time, people believed Havoc's past stories, the years they faced everything together from beefs to poverty, the tours they pushed through while Prodigy lay in the hospital fighting sickle cell, the nights they recorded as if music was their only escape from Queensbridge, the remorse Havoc expressed about the 2012 scandal, and the times he admitted he was wrong, childish, and not mature enough. Because a man who breaks down like that does not lie about those things. Prodigy's passing accomplished something 10 years of internet debates could not. It made the world see Havoc as a human being, not as a stereotype, like the man in the background, the quiet one, the one who caused the problems, the angry one. It forced people to accept that Havoc loved, respected, fought for protected, and hurt in ways only true brothers ever do. When Havoc lost Prodigy, he did not just lose a friend. He lost the last witness to a journey no one else understood. So what happens to an artist when the only person who knew his pain is gone forever? That is the door to the next chapter. The legacy left behind. Some sentences only resonate when the speaker has walked almost the entire length of his road. And Havoc's sentence, "I am not a legend, I am a survivor," is exactly that kind of sentence people once saw as self-modesty, even excessive humility. But when you trace his entire journey, stitch every part of his life into a full map, you finally understand Havoc was not being philosophical. He was telling the truth. A truth that took nearly 3 decades for hip-hop to grow mature enough to face. Because if someone carried the refined musical bloodline of Bill Dixon, of musicians from St. Kitts of a family, where trumpet and piano were common language, that person should have grown up in bright studios or classical music halls. But Havoc landed in Queensbridge, where there were no keyboards, only clashing metal, and the sound of people running down dark hallways. People once thought he exaggerated his childhood to boost street credibility. But when evidence memoirs and records were reviewed, everything aligned. From a child with a noble musical lineage to a child hiding a gun in a laundry basket, Havoc existed between two worlds that neither world wanted to claim. When he entered music, he said he was the creator behind Mobb Deep's dark sonic identity. Fans did not believe it at the time, and the industry believed even less. To them, Havoc was simply the man beside Prodigy, a small piece of the puzzle. Only much later, when rappers from Nas to Kanye, from Raekwon to Eminem spoke up one by one, did the truth emerge the genius had always been there. He was merely overshadowed because the spotlight favors those who speak more than those who work more. He once said he was not the one who started beef. No one believed him. In hip-hop, silence is often treated as guilt. But when timelines were reanalyzed, when the stories involving Tupac, Jay-Z, and other conflicts were placed in their correct context, people realized Havoc was the kind of person pulled into war, not the one who fired the first shot. He was the target, not the instigator. Even the darkness of alcohol and gambling followed this same pattern. Havoc said he lost himself in nights he could not remember. People laughed, calling it an excuse for scandal. But when the story of $20,000 lost in a casino was confirmed, when studio insiders recounted the nights he blacked out and woke with regret, he could not name people, finally saw a man who was not searching for trouble, but running from it. The 2012 scandal was once the biggest stain on his career. But after all the confessions, self-reflection, and the months he could not listen to Mobb Deep's music after Prodigy's death, people realized it was not the downfall of an arrogant artist, but the collapse of a man carrying too many wounds to stand firm forever. So when Havoc said he was not a legend, only a survivor, the sentence stopped sounding like humility. It became the official report of a life. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is this: only when loss arrived, only when time peeled back every layer of truth, only when pain no longer had anything to hide, did the world finally believe that Havoc had been telling the truth from the very beginning.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and the truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.